The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tracy Noble with ABB Power Systems, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items for you today. All participant audio will be muted during the event. If you would like to ask a question, please use the chat question box on the GoToWebinar panel, which should be on the right side of your screen. We will answer as many questions as possible during the event and after the webinar is presented. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed to you following the event. Please feel free to forward this link on to people you believe would benefit from this presentation. Now we have a little message from our legal department. ABB is pleased to provide you with the technical information regarding protected relays. The material included is not intended to be a complete presentation of all potential problems and solutions related to this topic. The content is generic and may not be applicable for circumstances or equipment at any specific facility. By participating in ABB's web-based protected relay school, you agree that ABB is providing this information to you on an informational basis only and makes no warranties, representations, or guarantees as to the efficacy or commercial utility of the information for any specific application or purpose, and ABB is not responsible for any action taken in reliance on the information contained herein. ABB consultants and service representatives are available to study specific operations and make recommendations on improving safety, efficiency, and profitability. Contact an ABB sales representative for further information. Today's presentation is Cybersecurity in Substations. And our presenters are Stephen Kunzman. Steve joined ABB in 1984 and has 27 years of experience in substation automation, protection, and control. He graduated from Lafayette College with a BS in electrical engineering and Lehigh University with an MBA concentrated in management of technology. Today, Steve is responsible for ABB North American Power Systems Substation Automation Products business. He is an active member of the IEEE Power Engineering Society, PSRC, including Working Group Chairperson for H13, an IEC TC57 U.S. delegate in the development of the IEC 61850 communication standard, and UCA International Users Group Executive Committee Co-Chairperson. And we are lucky to have Frank Holbaum joining us. Frank is globally responsible for all aspects of cybersecurity within ABB's Substation Automation and drives the security activities in this business unit. He is an active member of the Power Systems Security Council and represents the business unit Substation Automation. Frank Holbaum joined ABB in 1996 and has 16 years of experience in substation automation. He graduated from University in Furtwangen, Germany, with Bachelor of Sciences concentrated in software and electrical technologies. Additionally, he did postgraduate studies in business administration at the University in Zurich. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Steve Kunzman.
Thank you very much, Tracy. So again, thank you for joining us today for the webinar series. We're going to focus on questions related to cybersecurity, have a better understanding of the drivers behind the cybersecurity aspects, also provide you with a high-level overview on how to address some cybersecurity requirements and solutions, and then go a little bit into a technical discussion on how to address these cybersecurity requirements for the substation automation system, and then talk a little bit about what's coming up in the future and a bunch of activity that is. So for the topics that we will cover, first start off with a high-level introduction on cybersecurity. Again, what are the main drivers? Why are we so concerned about this application? Discussion of risk, because security is all about risk management. Some of the challenges that the industry is facing today. Solutions that can be deployed for substation automation applications, and then we'll wrap up with a small conclusion. So cybersecurity, the high-level goals are really availability of your control system, and this comes through avoiding denial of service. So you need to make sure that the service and the system is active and available. Integrity is also a very important factor, where you want to avoid unauthorization or modifications of the system. Confidentiality is to avoid disclosure of information. Authentication, and this is to ensure that the right clients and servers and users are in the system to avoid spoofing or forgeries. Authorization, to make sure that the personnel with the right access are able to access the system. Auditability, to be able to go back and avoid hiding of attacks through trails and logs. And as I said, avoid denial of responsibility. Security has, two different aspects. One is a functional aspect, where you have user authentication, various firewalls and antivirus, and then a quality aspects, where we're really talking about what to do to ensure that your depth or defense in depth is there, as well as how to make sure your substation automation system is thoroughly tested for various robustness and secure breaches. Okay, why is this an issue? Well, in today's modern automation protection and control systems, we're leveraging standardized components, whether it's Ethernet-based technology, Microsoft Explorer, Internet Explorer, the IP-based communication protocols that are popular today with Ethernet. These systems are also connected to external networks, so it's not the traditional substation automation system that was connected just to the SCADA system. They're connected to utility wide area networks. And also the use of mobile devices and storage media create some challenges for this industry. On the demand and drivers for cybersecurity, I think from the world perspective, what's happening in the USA has the biggest demand on security, and that this is mainly driven by regulations, the NERC activities, as well as a lot of the smart grid initiatives that have generated a lot of interest over the past 4 or 5 years. Canada is following closely on the tails of the U.S. and here from a NERC perspective, if the bulk power system connects across the boundary, then this is also a critical asset that needs to be protected. In Europe, there's less demand. Main drivers are in the Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, and UK, but certainly it's gaining interest as well. And then in the Middle East, security demand is still low, but medium to increasing, and for the rest of the world. Next slide is drivers by application. So if we take a look at the process, so network management, energy management systems, and SCADA have one of the largest demands for the need for security. Process industry, oil and gas, or process automation is the second largest, followed by power generation, and then substation automation today is the small footprint, but ever increasing due to the need for the intelligence. So where do we see the industry going when we look at this triangle between vendors, customers, and standards? There's a lot of activity that's propagating from this. So stimulus projects that are being put in, the big push from the NIST industry on the smart grid applications, the IEEE is stepping in, NERC CIP is also another big entity here. As well, vendors are pushing their technology to make sure that we can have a more secure and robust system. As I said, standardization and regulations, this is an eye-strained picture. It's not intended for you to read, but just to understand that there is and has been a lot of activities that are ongoing. Much has been coordinated and a lot has not been coordinated. So there's a lot of technical versus non-technical applications going on, generic overviews versus application-specific, and then from a centricity standpoint, end users versus what the vendors are pushing into the marketplace. When we take a look at the key drivers behind cybersecurity, we feel that the most relevant efforts ongoing is, number one, the NIST activities, working on the smart grid interoperability. And here there's a lot of activity that's going that's fast-tracked to develop standards for the security applications. NERC CIP from North America. We all know about this, and especially from the utility standpoint, that this is one of the leading drivers because of the regulation that has been placed on the utilities. We'll talk a little bit more about NERC CIP, but the first version of that has been released for several years now, and they're working on revision 5 or version 5 of the standard. Then there's an IEC 62351 standard that focuses on data and communication security inside the substation, and this really companions the IEC 61850 for Ethernet-based communication applications. So parts of this are released into the market today, and some are following up. And then what's really important is when you go back and take a look at the NERC standard, NERC is not a technical standard. So there's activities inside the IEEE under H13 and C10 from the Substation Committee that is developing this IEEE C37240 standard. And it really focuses on the technical requirements for substation automation cybersecurity. And this is in the process of being developed today, and will be out in the next year or two. A standard that has already been released is IEEE 1686, and this defines the requirements of the substation device, the control device. So the intelligent electronic device or the gateway or the RTU. If you have one of these products that you use in your system, IEEE 1686 can allow you to map the security features that are required by the standard and show you how the product complies to that or does not comply. And then on the industrial side, where a lot of great work has been done in the ISA S99, this is also a great reference point that feeds into the work that's listed above. And then there is a industrial control system joint working group where a lot of the vendors and the community members come together and have a lot of dialogue and also interact with the U.S. CERT applications. So what really is driving cybersecurity? Okay, currently the many initiatives and activities driven by technology and solutions. Okay, however, control system security should be based on an understanding of risk. And so the question really is, how big is the risk out there? And I think we hear in most days of news flashes popping up. But let's go into this a little bit. So who is responsible for the most cybersecurity related incidents? Is it the hackers, okay, or the terrorists or the enemy states, employees of an internal company, or some type of malware that gets propagated throughout the system? Well, actually, the most likelihood of an incident happening comes from accidents or mistakes that happen internal to the process. Or there's a rogue employee or an insider inside the actual secure domain that creates the issues. And then obviously malware. These thieves are extortionists, and terrorists are actually at the least likely to happen. Okay, but the bottom line is all these events could occur, and the consequences are potentially huge and really unknown to ours. So security is an insurance policy. It's protecting against what could happen, and we hope that it will never happen. But just to give you an idea. So again, when we take a look at what's publicized, a bunch of these cybersecurity incidents are real, and then some are myths. So the question is, when we take a look at these, is the cyber terrorism, is it a myth? Well, it's denial. Okay. On the other hand, when we have our news agencies, blasting out that a mouse click could, make a city go dark, that creates a lot of reaction and panic. Bottom line is we all need to take these seriously, but it's a challenge that we can meet and put the technology out there into the applications to cover them. So talking about the challenges, first thing I'd like to do is define what is the difference between an enterprise IT and a control system. So from these two different applications, when we talk about the primary object that we're protecting under an enterprise system or your typical business system in your employer's facility today, protecting information. Confidentiality is really important there. On the control system, we're protecting the physical process and the assets that are connected to that process. So the primary risk of impact is, from an enterprise IT perspective, it's information disclosure. It could be financial in the banking industry. From a control system perspective, it can be, safety, health, environment, as well as financial, because in the utility environment, we still have the transactions for, billing and metering and so forth. Main objective from an enterprise IT, as I said, is confidentiality. Okay, but from a control system, it's availability. So that is the paramount attribute, that this system is always available to do what it's intended to do, and that's protect the power system or communicate to it. Security focus in an enterprise IT is usually centralized, servers, lots of CPUs, fast memories. In a control system, it's more distributed throughout a wider geographic area and possibly limited to the resources. When we take a look at the availability requirements on an enterprise system, so availability, we're looking at an uptime of 95 to 99%. And when we turn that around to what is the acceptable downtime, that's on the average of 3 to 18 days per year that system can be down. On a control system, especially around a transmission substation automation system, here we're looking for an availability of greater than 99.99%, which is on the average a year, minutes to a couple hours. So again, that's what we're really trying to protect against, make sure that system is up and running for its duration, because if it's down for a greater amount of time, then the likelihood of a misoperation or something leading up to a blackout could occur. Okay, security versus safety. This is very important. So when we take a look at security relating to safety, both require a cultural change in our organizations. Both are all about process. Okay, how does the application work? What are the training requirements behind this? And then most importantly, both require top management support to be able to take these security philosophies and concepts and put them throughout our infrastructure. Security, which is not related to safety, where safety is static and predictable, threats don't change. Okay, so you know what the problems are, you just need to manage those. Cybersecurity is constantly changing, so threats are always changing. New viruses are coming up, new Trojans, etc. New ways to actually hack into the system. So for cybersecurity, the attackers are involved. Safety solutions can be certified, so you can validate and reproduce for a safety system. Okay. What to protect or why to protect, what, from who, and how. Okay, these are some of the challenges that face the end users. So the key thing is assessment of the existing system, knowing what you have, and most importantly, identifying the gaps as to what is missing as part of that process. Making cybersecurity part of the risk management process, so that when you make a change, you also look at cybersecurity and how its impact on that system and performance will be. Definition of the security requirements, and this comes both from the vendors and system integrators. What are the requirements that we can fulfill from a community standpoint and a functionality? Do they match what your philosophy and requirements are? Operations and management of the architecture. Here we want to continuously monitor the apparatus in the system. Regularly look at files. We can collect all this information. Okay, but if nobody goes back and reviews it to see if something had occurred during that time frame, then it's useless information. Regular reevaluation of the security architecture. Is there a new technology out today that could do things a lot faster, a lot better? Or do we have new threats that come into play that we now see that there's an issue with the architecture that we have deployed? Also, continuous threat models, risk management. And here, again, the hackers and these terrorists are not sitting still. So how do we manage? How do we keep connected to the community to get early warnings of some of these new type of attacks? And then the development of the IT security procedures, policies, and processes are very, very important. Then once you have all this defined, it's really training and deployment of these policies and practices throughout your employee base. and then the evaluation and planning of the new cost, because security is certainly not for free. So addressing the risks, answers to the what ifs. What if I cannot operate this device? So I need to be able to open a breaker that's or close in a breaker that's intertying a transmission line. What happens if I'm denied access to that? What if somebody else can operate the device so they can actually open up several transmission lines at a time? What does that do on the overall reliability of the power system? What if information gets disclosed that's sensitive and now goes out into use for malicious intent? Okay, so as I said, what if somebody opens a breaker, or what happens if it doesn't? So don't fall for the myth. Cybersecurity is only an issue for TCP/IP-based systems. Okay, Ethernet is very powerful. TCP is very powerful. The use of these open standards in our modern technology allows us to enable and innovate our applications. Okay, but don't be fooled. Serial links are just as vulnerable. So whether it's a DMP serial RS-485, it is as vulnerable as a TCP/IP application. Even isolated systems have entry points, portable media, whether it's a jump drive that somebody puts a Trojan on and you plug it into your Substation Automation system behind the firewall. This can happen. Cyber attacks will not come from within a physical perimeter because a physical attack would be easier. That's not true. Cyber attacks can be much more sophisticated. Substation could be used as an entry point. And so this is also really critical when we look at the bulk power system, the bulk energy system, where a lot of the focus of the NERC CIP has been around the transmission applications. Well, if you have that same IT connection to your distribution substation and it's not protected the way that your transmission is, then this is an entry point for somebody to go and set up shop, try to get into your system, and gain control from the distribution level. Okay, security of isolated systems. As I just said, most systems are not really isolated. There's virtual connections, and even carrying laptops around from one station to the next could pass it around. So the main challenges from a vendor perspective, okay, we have these different life cycles. We have standards that are developing right now on how to keep up with them when the product development life cycle is 1 to 2 years in some cases. We have different drivers for the demand side, technology changes, definition of requirements, implementation of these features, integrating third-party solutions, developing the process, establishing the security principles, even for the R&D side of the products that are being developed for your control system. Okay, and then most importantly, once you have this system done, how do you verify that you've actually met the requirements and the security offerings fulfill the applications? Okay, solutions approach. So when we scroll back to the basics, okay, accounts responsibility or accept responsibility. Security is all about knowing what's in your confines, what you're responsible for. Security, as I said, is also about process, making sure that your policies are implemented and processes are followed through. Ignore compliance at first. Okay, it doesn't mean that that's not important. Okay, but to be able to be compliant, you must do the process and the procedures and have an understanding of what's needed to be compliant before you can actually achieve this compliance. There is no such thing as being 100% secure. So we can come out with the best technology in the world, okay, today that we feel is the most secure system, and today somebody will find something new to get in there. So it's also a continuous process of improving the applications. Security is not free. And here, one of the recent reports that EPRI has just brought out estimated to bring the U.S. power system into the cybersecurity protection required, it's going to cost somewhere around $3.7 billion. Okay, and the issue with that is that a lot of utilities don't have, number one, the cost justified to do that because the probability of a security event is low. And it's just like an insurance policy. Security is needed to be able to, or the cybersecurity features are needed to be able to protect you in the time when you need it. So the question here is, how do you do this by using a pragmatic approach, and it needs to be based on, the best practices and common standards in the industry. So access control and least privileges. So here, the key point is, make use of the possibility to have personal accounts. I know that a lot of our legacy substation automation equipment, the protection and control devices, have very rudimentary passwords and user accounts. Okay, but we need to make sure that this is a strong requirement going into the future, that our control systems have the ability to have individual user accounts. Make use of the ability to change passwords. I know that there are a lot of applications or installations out there that initially, when the devices were put out, they were still at the manufacturer default passwords. So this is also part of the NERC CIP requirements, that passwords are changed on a regular basis. Also make use of role-based. So whether it's a technician or an engineer going into the control system, to make sure their privileges match and are limited to just what they need to do to perform their job. Okay, system hardening. We talk about the whole substation automation system, and we need to make sure it's robust. And we do this by hardening the products that go into this and validate this. So servers and workstations inside the substation automation system. Remove unused software. Okay, it's not needed, so why have it there? Disable unused services. So if there's some applications or services running on the PC that are not needed for your control system application, disable it. Remove unused accounts. If there are accounts that are obviously not needed for the people to do the control applications, then remove them. And as I said earlier, change the default password. From the networks and the other devices like gateways or protective relays, here we need to disable the unused services again, removal of the unused accounts, and change the passwords as well. Okay, network separation and secure remote access. So here, this can be accomplished by a couple of fashions. The most common are use of firewalls and gateways to actually create network zones. Avoid a flat network where every single communicating device is connected into the same level. Create the demilitarization zone for all the external accesses. Block all traffic between zones by default. So filter on incoming and outgoing traffic. This way you keep the command separated to only the areas in the network that are required. And then also use VPNs, gateways to secure the remote access. Terminate VPN connections outside the firewall. So if somebody actually gets into from the outside, that this is not a channel to the system. From cybersecurity, what are these issues? As I mentioned before, cybersecurity has become an issue because of the introduction of the Ethernet-based communication protocols, especially to the automation and control system. So IEC 6870-5104 was one of the first introductions of that, DMP TCP, and now 61850. So these are the typical protocols or communication architectures that are Ethernet-based. Connections to and from the networks. So whether it's an office internet to the industrial system, have open systems or can be misused by the attackers. So our internal people can get into these or externals. Cyber attacks on industrial automation control systems are really increasing, leading to large financial losses. Also, the utilities need to avoid liability due to the noncompliance with the regulations, and this we have seen now over the past couple of years with the NERC regulations. Okay, talking about NERC. So to look at this in a nutshell, the NERC standards were introduced several years ago with mandatory compliance to them. They're broken up into the different levels. So CIP 002 is the identification of critical cyber assets. 03 is security management controls. 04, personnel and training. 5 is the electronic security perimeter. 6, physical security for critical assets. 7 is security system management. 8 is incident reporting and response planning. And 9 is recovery plans. What I'll show in a couple of slides is these titles. Some of them have changed in the latest version. That's under draft for CIP version 5. And they've also added 2 other sections, 10 and 11. From a vendor perspective, here's where we can help come in to the customer and the utility to be able to look at these 2 aspects and bear some of the responsibility of improving the security to help you support NERC CIP. So the technical impact on the SA system on the electronic security perimeter. So responsibility really is to ensure that every critical cyber asset resides inside the ESP. Control electronic access to all electronic access points, and then monitor and log access at the access point. All critical cyber assets must be inside the ESP with an identified asset access point. Access points must deny access by default. They must enable only those ports and services, as I mentioned earlier, for operations monitoring of the cyber assets inside the ESP. Implement strong authentication for external access, and then log and monitor access, detect and alert unauthorized access attempts. So this is done through the security monitoring applications. SIP7, secure management. Here, the responsible entity shall ensure that only those ports and services required for normal and emergency operations are enabled. Needs to have a security patch management program in place. Needs to have malicious software prevention tools up and running and reporting. Must enforce all access and authentication of and accountable for all user access, and shall implement the security status monitoring. These are the requirements that apply to all cybersecurity assets inside the ESP. Looking forward on the next version. So here we can see in version 4, critical asset identification, but there's a new title for version 5, and that's the bulk energy system, cyber assets and cyber system security categorization. If you take a look at 006, again, a new title here is physical security of the bulk energy system, cyber systems. 009, again, new title for this one is recovery plans for critical assets, and it added for bulk energy cyber assets and systems. And then number 10 is a new one, configuration management and vulnerability, which is now in version 5. And then 11 is information protection. I've included the links in here of both standards for version 3.4 and the upcoming 1.5 for your reference. What is the timing and transition of the dates? And this slide has been taken from the NERC CIP 5 webinar, which can be replayed online at the link that I have listed at the bottom. So version 3 has been out today. And version 4 has also been out and has superseded some of the parts of version 3. Version 5, as we said, is in draft right now. It's under development, and the effective time frame target is January 1st, 2015. Now, there's a lot of process that needs to go through, the voting on it, the proposal from NERC to FERC to actually accept this and accept that these effectivity dates start up. Just to give you a high-level overview, this is also from the NERC CIP webinar of what is of high impact today, going from version 4 to version 5. So large control centers, especially surrounding SIP3 through SIP9+. Medium impact will be your generation and transmission applications, and then all other bulk energy system, cyber systems, whether the policies, security awareness, incident response, and boundary protection, or we'll go from the non-critical side. Okay, to talk a little bit about the substation automation system, what this picture identifies the concept of drawing out a station level of the SA system. And this is where all your devices, whether it's a workstation, HMI, your printers, your interfaces to the outside world, whether it's a gateway or an RTU. This is where, in a 61850-based Ethernet system, the station level applies. Then we also introduced this layer called the bay level, and that's the interface between the station and the process. So here's where your protection and control devices reside. Here's where, if you have meters, they would sit in. Transformer monitors, breaker monitors, and so forth would be at the bay level. And then the process level today is typically a hardwired connection using copper wires from the control house of the substation automation system and the protective relays out to the sensors and the breaker controls. But tomorrow with 61850, actually today we're actually doing that as well. This is starting to be replaced with communications. Okay, cybersecurity without compromise. So here again, driving the industry is technology. Industry standards 61850s allow and enable for information exchange that support higher levels of system reliability. And the system reliability is really, really critical as we look at the main purpose in the utility industry is to provide reliable power. Okay, in the mix of that, we also need to make sure that the security of the system is there to be able to prevent that delivery of reliable power, but not prevent it. So when we take a look at some of the high-end applications like wide area measurement or system-wide protection, it needs the bandwidth and the communications of these modern communication systems to be able to deliver the information to prevent blackouts, for example, or take proactive measures to bring peaking generation on a real-time basis. And if we have the security aspects of the system choking the need for this information or restricting the need of the information from going out, then we create a reliability issue. So the ultimate goal in both cybersecurity and the power system delivery is the high reliability delivery of power T&D. Okay. So it's also important to safeguard interoperability. So information between devices from different vendors of 61850 and compliant products and systems, it's really, really important that the security aspects don't prevent that from occurring, because then we have issues with how do we get necessary information from one base device to the other. Ensuring reliability and interoperability are the two main goals when designing and engineering 61850-based systems. So this is really important. And then supporting availability, reliability, and interoperability while at the same time addressing these tasks from a cybersecurity standpoint. So the industry, the vendors, the standardization bodies, the customers and utilities, we all must work together to provide solutions that address all these aspects without compromise. So that's the key message here. Okay, what are some of the key features on this station level? So when we take a look at the features, we talked about individual user accounts earlier, role-based access, okay, to be able to give the operator or the person entering there just the amount of access needed to do their job. Enforce the password policies, okay, to be able to maintain, if you have somebody leave the organization, that passwords are changed on particular systems. Or if there is a requirement to have your password changed every 2 months, that these are enforced. Session management, to make sure that you're monitoring the different sessions that are connected on through authentication. detailed audit trails, because this is how you're going to go back and review an incident to see what has actually happened. So you need the audit trails to be able to capture the information, but then also you need the policies and processes in place to make sure that you look at these pieces of information. You should secure the remote access connections, built-in firewalls, built-in VPNs, support antivirus, and again, coming back to disabling unused ports and services that are not necessary for the application. Okay, so when we take a look at the security and robustness threats, so here's our little diagram of the substation automation system. So from the outside, we can see that going through the VPNs, there is this security disturbance malware and attack. So the hacker is sitting on the outside trying to get in through the ESP, the electronic security perimeter. We also have unauthorized personnel trying to break through the physical security protection perimeter. And then number 3 here is defense in depth. At one side, they're inside the perimeter, and they gain access to be able to make sure that we have the security features inside the substation to be able to prevent malicious acts. So when we talk about this defense in depth, the 3 major points here coming back is the separation of the network, so at the station level and the outside world to the actual control process that's shown in the bottom right-hand portion of this picture. All the products are hardened. They go through extensive device testing, and then the secure remote access points are encrypted, or make sure that you have a VPN that does not allow. Physical security for substation is important. Obviously, the fence, the access, and video surveillance is a means to do this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is ask Frank Holbaum to come online now, and because you're probably tired of listening to me talk for this portion, so I'll let Frank take over, and he'll go into a lot of the substation automation solutions for us.
Okay, hello everybody. I'd like to explain you a little bit about our solutions. Here's a full picture how we like to address security for substation automation. And what we already heard from Steve is, also from New York City, you need to monitor what's going on in the substation. So here the monitoring part is quite important. Behind this picture are several other pictures which explaining, for example, logging, reporting, and so on. So I will first go now to this slide and then have a lot of examples how we in ABB address, for example, logging in an RTO. So we heard monitoring is a very important, logging, so we know what's going on, we know who has logged in, at which time, which as administrator or as user. But also we have seen we need to protect ourselves. We need protection like firewalls. We need protection mechanism, for example, malware protection. Daily, I'm not sure how many viruses coming up, and we need to protect us for these viruses and worms, and all that is kind of risky things. But at the end, we need also to manage our system. All protection does not help if we don't update our systems like Microsoft. They get every second week they get updated security patches. So in ABB, for example, we verify all these third-party security patches and make a patch report, so you know, yes, ABB has verified them and you can install them. So for example, here manage your system, make updates, also backup and restoration, or backup and recovery. We have seen all these things coming also from standards from New York City, and we we try to address them in our solution. But at the end, here we see in the middle is our product system hardening activities. On one side, we're doing hardening of each single product, but then at the end, it's coming to your system. You need also to take care that the system will stay hardened over the time. Okay, Steve, let's go for the next slide. So one proposal is, or one solution is, we have already mentioned, we are addressing product hardening. So each product go to an independent test center, and we make robustness tests. We deactivate Ethernet ports which are not used. We remove the removable media, like we deactivate the USB ports. And what's quite important, that we have here this network separation, so that we not have a flat network. So here we separate real-time communication, for example here 6150, or it could also be DNP with station communication. So here, for example, we have for remote access, we have a station LAN connecting to our workstations, and so a possible attacker could come into our system, but it not automatically come to our to our real-time communication. So this is also strategic. We have seen before, defend in depth, make different barriers. So if hacker can step into one barrier, he not automatically come to all over the places. Okay, let's go to the next. So here's one example. I think this is from R2560, where we have strong authentication. So you as user can set up a password policy. Here it's not so good readable, but so in this case we say the minimum password length is 6 characters. And so here you can define for your system or for your utility, you can define your own password policy. Should be in the password an uppercase, lowercase, should be the numerical characters. So everything what we already know from our personal computers. But here in this case you can define it for your RTUs. And then what's also very important, and you see it in all the standards, it's called role-based access control. So on the one side you have different users, Frank, Steve, here, Richard, and so on. And then you assign them to a role as an operator, and you assign them permissions. So here they can view data, they can download the firmware, they can change the configuration, all kind of things. So here, for example, one case is RTU. We have defined some default.
Sorry, I think we lost Frank, so you get stuck with me here until Frank rejoins us. Okay, so from a strong authentication and account management, as Frank was saying, this is important for the station products to make sure passwords are encrypted, accounts and administration of the users is done. The next is, the security logging events. So to make sure that, the products are keeping track of these audit trails for, somebody trying to log into the system that's not accessed, that you have, these access points of who logged in when, or if somebody tries to hack a password, that you can get that indication. And then if there is identification of the indication, it will be in this log. A very important part of the cybersecurity is the security patch verification process. So, whenever Microsoft puts out a patch of their operating system, But what's important is that we also take that patch and put it into our security validation process to make sure that that hasn't introduced another security feature. So with monthly security patch verification and software used as part of our Substation Automation system, reports then we publish on our MicroSCADA Pro partners portal. It also applies for the other products that we have too. But the important part is that as these patches are coming out from Microsoft to fix vulnerabilities, that we bring them into our releases on a regular basis. Very important is in the event of a catastrophe where you may have corruption on the actual system, that you have manual files and backup and recovery to be able to restore. And this also goes a long way for configuration management, using configuration management tools to be able to identify what was actually loaded in that system to be able to recover from that. So, the benefit here is really to save and secure the application data, but also to be able to quickly recover from any type of abnormal condition or event that occurs. Integrated firewall. So here, the firewall, what's important is that the security solution has the firewall on there, and it protects the network from unauthorized access, while permitting the rightful users to actually communicate through the link and pass information. One thing that it does is it blocks the inbound connections when they're not authorized. Outbound packet filtering to make sure that the information is going out in the right fashion. Advanced packet filtering, so rules can be established for specified sources or destination IP addresses or ranges to make sure that anything coming inbound or outbound from destinations or sources that are outside that range are either blocked or protected. Okay, and this really applies to our station-level product components, the MicroSCADA, the Sys600C, where the engineering and operator workplaces are deployed. Securing the communication, either with SSL, the secure sockets layer, or a VPN, which is a virtual private network. And here the benefit is securing the communications from the substation to remote maintenance centers or remote control centers to be able to make sure that whoever is entering it goes through this tunnel, is authorized, and has access to the information. So the features of the VPN, secure way of connecting to a private LAN at the remote location. Authentication, to be able to deny access to users that aren't permitted to get through that pipe. The encryption, and this is where the secure socket layer comes into play. It really prevents unauthorized users from reading the information or coming back in and spoofing the information if it's encrypted. And then it also applies, this application has been in these products as well. Okay, central user account management. Here's something that we're working on today. Once all these substations across your fleet are installed and up and running, how do you handle the user management of these from your corporate office? So the benefits of the centralized system is, the efficient account management and fast deployment of any changes. So if you have an employee that leaves, you need to restrict access to a certain rights. The central account management system can issue out to all the substations to be able to block this or change passwords or so forth. Okay, so you manage the accounts, distribute, replicate them to all devices, including the switches, because they are also configurable. Okay, and it uses this protocol LDAP, which is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Okay, centralized security event manager outside the system. So here's where, from our perspective and our solutions, we look to third parties. So what I've shown here is an Industrial Defender Security Event Manager appliance that's put into the system. And here the Security Event Manager does that. all security information is accessible on this centralized location. So here, this would typically sit at your control room or your SCADA operation. It collects and monitors actionable cybersecurity data from a central location, responds proactively to security events with these alerts real time, while storing security events for this post-mortem or forensic analysis. And the key thing here is it enables the compliance with the NERC CIP and the other cybersecurity standards because of the event manager collecting this information for post-mortem and post-event analysis. Okay, network intrusion system. So here are the benefits of the SEM is to detect abnormal traffic in the network and generate alarms. So if you have a denial of service attack on the system or where your network is just flooded with information, it will passively monitor this and detect this and remove that part of the system. So as I said here, the passively monitored network traffic within the control network enable detection of all suspicious activities. It also includes internally generated attacks as well as attacks that may be circumvented by perimeter defenses. It monitors the protocols used by Substation Automation, so whether it's a DMP3 or a Ethernet-based IP application. So it can monitor the actual packets that are going on, and it can validate whether or not this packet information is valid or not. And then obviously to support the event manager, it generates the alarms that are sent up to the security event manager for logging and diagnostics. Compliance manager. So here the benefit is efficient compliance reporting. So it produces the reports and data necessary for documentation and CIP audits. It collects and archives the logs and compliance data. Works with the information from dissimilar control systems, so it's control system agnostic, so it doesn't really matter whether it's an ABB or a competitor system. Creates custom baselines to ensure device and application and port services compliances. So what it will do is make sure what's loaded onto the system is actually running there. Demonstrate compliance against regulatory policies. Again, here's where your regulations and NERC CIP come into play. And manage the highly manual process with limited resources. So it automates a lot of the features. When we talk about the firewalls, routers and VPNs for secure communications, and this is really set up to do your perimeter protection and secure the communications to the remote location. So whether it's, we showed here, a RuggedCom router, or it's an internal VPN that's inside our RTU 560 application. So high performance and advanced firewall functionality to ensure that we have the most throughput in the system. VPN, a secure connection of a local private local area network at the remote location. Again, authentication to be able to deny access to unauthorized users. And then advanced encryption using IPsec to prevent the unauthorized users from reading packets in the private network. Okay, the UTM, or Unified Threat Manager, is another appliance by Industrial Defender, where this would go into the system. Again, advanced perimeter protection, securing the communications outside, preventing damaging unauthorized traffic. So again, it monitors the applications and makes sure that only valid information is flowing on the network. Firewalls to strictly define the flows through the control network parameters. And if there's a rogue or a spoof that comes in, that it will detect that and block that. Virus protection. Okay, intrusion protection. So to stop the threats of worms or other malware before they reach the SA system. Okay, again, increasing the reliability as well as patching schedule flexibility. So then also the VPN, it provides that capabilities, as we talked about earlier with the secure remote access, the IPsec, user authentication, LDAP, and also radius servers. Access Manager, here the benefit is secure remote access, and it can protect dial-up IP or serial over IP communication, so it's not locked into one technology. Centralized management of users, authorization, and substation devices. So again, it keeps a history and dialogue of all the fleet installed devices in your system. Individual credentials, digital certifications or two-factor authentication. Electronic security perimeter protection to really sit on the boundary of the ESP. Active Directory integration for single-point administration of groups. Comprehensive incident reporting, again, for auditing and post-mortem analysis. Okay, and then protocol and hardware agnostic. So it doesn't really matter what protocol you have deployed, what system you have in your product. It's independent of the application. Virus protection, I think we're all quite similar to this with our PCs that we use in our office or home environment. And the benefit of this is, prevent, detect, and remove the malware. So to block the threats, the issue with this, as we have mentioned earlier, is that the malware protection needs to constantly be updated with new images of what the latest threats are. So this is also part of the security application. Whitelisting, this may be a new term to some people, but it really takes and identifies, the applications that are stored in the system, so it has a footprint of what applications are on a particular system, and it blocks unauthorized applications or change on a fixed function point of service infrastructure. So it really sits there and monitors the PC. It knows exactly what configuration files should be loaded in there, exactly what sizes they are, and it creates a dynamic whitelist of trusted applications. So this is very, very fortunate and beneficial to gain increased control over the fixed functions, monitor the file integrity and file changes. It's also applied to the Microsoft Windows-based computer applications. Sounds like we may have Frank back.
Yeah, hello.
Okay.
Welcome.
Now I'm done with your slides, Frank.
Yeah, somehow my internet access has broken. So I think we just got a question about the antivirus software, and I think it's a good solution, but the antivirus solution is only good if we keep them all time up to date. So I get maybe daily updates on my computer. Yeah, this is a valid question. So for this solution, we need a connection to a central place. A possible solution not to go with antivirus software is, if you go to the next slide, this application whitelisting. So here, as Steve mentioned, we have antivirus software solution. They know the bad guys, so all this bad pattern they know, and you need to keep them up to date. In the whitelisting, since we have only a limited number of applications which are running on our PCs, like our SCADA application, then we have maybe a PDF reader, we have some other tools on it, but we don't need a media player, we don't have Internet Explorer to go to the Internet. So you know exactly which applications you have, and this you bring into your whitelist. And if somebody comes with a new software, a new USB stick, even if a Stuxnet comes, the whitelist at least blocks them to go further, to build up a connection to the Internet, to install new software, because this is not allowed. And we have tested this, and this is quite a good solution for those applications where we know the number of applications, and these applications don't change frequently, and which have no connection to the internet. So this is made a good solution for all our substations. Okay, let's go for the next slide. What we have seen before, monitoring is an important issue. So here we have this strategic partnership with Industrial Defender, where we collect all security events from several substations with a security event manager. And Industrial Defender has also an application whitelisting for all the PCs here in our substations. And here we have this called HIPS, Host Intrusion Prevention System. So we prevent all these PCs for executing unallowed code and exploits and so on. So here, in one case, we protect our systems, and on the other hand, we detect also all kind of traffic, all kind of abnormality, and security event will be sent to the security event manager. And here, this security event manager is really the central point where you can analyze once a month, once a week, what's happened with your system, and really see, oh shit, this happened and this happened, and then you can start planning reaction and plan things to do. So here this application whitelisting really improves for don't updating so often. Still we need to update in the longer steps the patches, but we don't need to update daily or weekly the antivirus pattern. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here we show a little bit defense in steps. On the one side, we address security in the ABB system, but in addition, with Industrial Defender, we can really increase the security offering for the whole area, starting from logging and alarming, the perimeter protection, the secure communication, malware protection, and even intrusion detection. So here, I'm not sure how deep Steve went into. For example, here this UTM is an extended firewall. It's not only a normal firewall. It can also analyze the package. It's called deep package inspections. So, for example, in US we have quite a lot of DNP communication, and this device can analyze if it's a valid DNP package, and if it's an abnormal DNP package, then they will drop it from the communication directly. So here on the what I already mentioned before, on our workstations, the PCs, we have on the one side the sensors who doing monitoring. It's a really smart application. You're doing monitoring of all the activities inside the PC, or the inventory, what we have in the PC, and report them to this security management. And on the other side, it has this application whitelisting and it protect us for all these viruses and worms and all these attacks. And then it makes a completion about here this network intrusion detection. Here we're monitoring all traffics, and when we have tested this in our labs, we see also abnormal traffic, and we certainly couldn't find even errors in our system. So if you install this network intrusion detection, you will immediately see what's going on your system. So here, this network intrusion detection system will also send the security events to this security event management or event manager, and here you can analyze these security events once a week, once a month, And then Industrial Defender has at the end here this compliance manager, and it creates automatically reports based on the data he gets from the security event manager. He creates reports which you can use for NERC compliance. You can create different kind of reports depending even for management, an overview report or detailed report. So this is a quite extensive product to create automatic reports. Even you can send this report on email on a scheduled basis. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here the robust security-enabled ABB products like this RTU with all these features, this hardening of the system, all the things together with offering from Industrial Defender brings us really a defense in depth, which it's needed from in the several markets. Steve, do you like to take over?
Sure, thank you, Frank. So we just have a couple more slides to go, and so when we take a look at the trends from the regulations and government initiatives, NERC CIP has the main focus, as I said earlier, because they're coming up with a new standard. This revision 5 of it focused on the bulk electric system. Additional security regulations expected for the smart grid. And again, the philosophy from a security standpoint in the utility, it just can't be the bulk energy or the transmission level applications. If you have a distribution system that has the same type of communication technology in it, that's a place where a hacker, if they can break through the physical parameters, get access to your network undetected and go through there. So really, from a security standpoint on the utility side, the philosophy must be take it from any voltage level. It's your entire system that you need to protect. Also, the activity going on in the NIST, supporting the smart grid roadmap is very important, and they're doing a lot of great work in that activity. And then to complement that, as I mentioned earlier, the IEEE activity going on inside the PSRC and the Substations Committee working on this new standard C37240 to really come up with the best technical requirements that must be fulfilled to ensure the dependability and reliability of your substation application. So those are a lot of the big drivers. Application focus, today it's really the DCS, EMS, and SCADA side. Okay, and tomorrow it needs to go all the way down to the endpoint. So the end-to-end security is the key thing. And again, this also falls in line whether it's a recloser sitting out downstream. If there's an access point into your infrastructure, that needs to be protected. And we need to come up with the right solution that's technically feasible to do so. From the business aspect, the smart grid and all the stimulus funding that was around there, we tied a lot of the applications to the sound security approach, especially coming out of the NIST organization. Also, from a business aspect, a lot of the focus has been on avoiding fines, associated with noncompliance on the end user side. Okay, tomorrow, reduction of risks for both end users and vendors, and we can only do this as a community working together. And participation in these standardization bodies is a really good way to do that, to bring the requirements from the utility side, match them with the technology from the vendor side, and also bring in our domain experts on the security from, whether it's the ICSWG working group or even from an industrial perspective, to bring them together, because the security solutions that we're looking at today have been deployed before. The deployment in the banking industry or the IT industry, we can leverage a lot of the technology that has been developed for that into our application for the substation. So that's really important. So from conclusion standpoint, security is just not a matter of technology. It's primarily about the people, relationships, and organizations. So again, this is what I was saying. You know, we come together to work to define what the attacks are, and this is a continuous process. So what we know today is certainly, you know, not what's going to be the threat tomorrow. So we need to continually analyze our systems, our process, our technology to make sure that we have the best technology and solution to make sure we deliver reliable power throughout the system. Okay, effective security solutions, a joint effort by vendors, integrators, and system operators. That goes without saying. Okay, and as we said, you know, security is not 100%, so there's no single solution that is effective for all organizations and applications. So there you need to fall back and say, what are your most important criteria? Okay, don't worry about compliance, okay, but define what your most important requirements are. Put the architectures, the policies, the procedures in place that will lead to compliance with minimal effort. So that needs to be the focus. As I also said, security is a continuous process, not a single product or a one-time investment. It's continuous. If you know a new threat comes out, we as an industry need to figure out how to solve that threat and deploy a solution into the field. Okay, security must be addressed with multiple barriers and requires protection and detection mechanisms. Okay, so defense in depth. It's not just putting passwords on our devices and we think we're okay. It's not just putting a VPN. You know, if the VPN is there and somehow the intruder gets through that VPN and then gets into simple passwords in the system inside the substation, that's a major concern. And you know, last but not least, it's really about risk management. Okay, perfect security is neither existent nor economically feasible. Okay, so what can we do for the investment that we have today? Okay, and then also let's not forget about, you know, the power system reliability side, that to get to higher levels of reliability and availability of the power system, it needs the information coming from these substations. Okay, and if we choke that off by our security solutions and don't let access to other applications in the utility infrastructure, that becomes the main challenge for our ultimate goal, which is improving the overall reliability of the system. So, Frank, there's a couple of questions that you would like to answer.
Yeah, here's a quite interesting question. It's how has NERC guidelines been modified to eliminate possibility of another Stuxnet? So it's a good question. So my fear is more from the small hackers. They are just downloading a tool on the internet and play around, or an employee who has too much time and play around with some tools, or just before was in YouTube, downloaded a new movie and then make some changes on the substation. My fear is more from this small hackers or small issues, and I think we already addressed this in our presentation. Yeah, have even some small measures in place, like remove the default accounts, have personal user accounts, have firewalls and blocking a certain kind of communication, using either antivirus software or application whitelisting. So it has shown the most application whitelisting suppliers has detected Stuxnet. But yeah, I think you, from a utility point of view, you have to address all this kind of a certain kind of measures. So of course, Stuxnet has used quite a lot of vulnerabilities. I think even 3 from Microsoft and quite many from Siemens. So they have put a lot of effort to get this Stuxnet happened. But my fear is more that a student or an employee of a company can make, with only a little bit effort, can make a lot of damage. Okay, we had a question also about its use of routers and firewalls recommended even for small substations, cost versus risk. today we find also even small firewalls. It costs a couple hundred of bucks, where maybe you have a limited feature what you can enable in this firewall, but at least you have a firewall. You can block certain kind of communication. You can make a port security, so you enable only certain IP addresses to connect to you. So you have rules for what's coming in, which data can come in, and which data is allowed to go out. So they are not quite not expensive. Of course, we have even models which are quite hardened, even for temperature range. But for small application, maybe a small one it's enough. So what else? Of course, antivirus solution and the update. Yes, this is a problem. Keep them up to date, and either we can manage to have a central server inside the utility, to have inside connection to the substation, to keep the antivirus software at least once a week or once a month up to date, or we go with the application whitelisting, which don't need any update at all. So, any new questions?
Yeah, just a comment to the one question that was also there is about the use of USB ports and so forth. So, as Frank said, the application whitelisting would certainly look for Trojans that would be transferred from a USB stick onto your application and your substation automation system, and it would prevent that from executing on that machine. So that's one way to handle that. But I think the more important thing is more from a policy perspective and training of our people that are at the substation. If they don't know where a USB stick has been, or just make a policy that they're not permitted to be used as that application. I know how convenient it is to use, and I would not get along without them. But when it comes to bringing potential malicious applications in, that's an easy way for this to get transmitted.
All right, I think that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all so much for your participation. You will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording of this webinar, and we hope to